How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, we're going to be taking a look at my updated Game Week 30 wildcard draft. Unfortunately, we did record the previous wildcard draft that I released a couple of days ago before the double Game Week 32 news for Spurs. We'll be touching on everything about double Game Week 32 a little bit later on, but in this video, we'll be going through the updated news, we'll be going through the updated fixtures, and then finally, we'll be looking at a squad that I think would be satisfactory for a Game Week 30 wildcard. Finally, to wrap up the video, we're going to be looking at negatives of the current draft that I do and transfer considerations that you guys should consider from now to the end of the season. So that's something you're interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as I mentioned, the new news that has dropped yesterday afternoon is that there now will be a double game week 32 for Spurs. It's a little bit of a weird one for a single team to have a double game week, but what has happened at the expense of this decision is that Crystal Palace now have a blank in game week 32. So if you guys were considering a Wilfried Zaha or maybe some other Crystal Palace options, I doubt you were, but please take into consideration that Crystal Palace do blank in game week 32. So with Spurs, they do have a double game week now against Everton and Southampton. In terms of those fixtures, pretty good fixtures. I guess they're a little bit mediocre. The Southampton game is definitely better than the Everton game, and from Southampton's defensive point of view this season, that actually looks like quite a good one. So you will be targeting that Southampton game, but with Everton, that defense is quite hit or miss as well, and it all depends on kind of which Spurs team also pitches up. At the start of the season, Spurs were looking red hot. That's dipped down towards the middle of the season, and now they're in a little bit of a weird spot here. Had some good results, but also had some bad results against rival squads like Arsenal. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens in double game week 32. A good opportunity for you guys to use the triple captains if you guys want to go for it. In terms of the wild card, we have to make some small adjustments, maybe include 2 or 3 players from Spurs just to take advantage of this double game week 32. In terms of the players that I would recommend, I think 2 players is perfectly adequate. If Heung-min Son is back from injury, kind of hoping that Jose Mourinho come out this week in that press conference and say that Son is back fit, then those 2 players will probably be locked in. Now the third option, if you want to go for a triple up of Spurs, is a little bit weird because of that defensive rotation that they usually have. I think that Lloris is probably the only nailed option in that defense, besides some other centre-back pairings that might be a little bit more secure than your fullbacks. But I think in terms of a third defender, unless it's a really differential attacker like a Lucas Moura, a Lamela, or a Dele Alli, I think the defense is going to be quite hard to predict, especially over a double game week. So I think 2 players is perfectly adequate for you guys. And now let's get on to another talking point in terms of the double. So another talking point in terms of the double is double game week 38. Now no, this doesn't mean that double game week 38 is confirmed. It actually could happen from game week 35 to 38, but what's happened is that the UK government have come out and said that they want to return fans to the stadium before the end of the season, and what they want to propose is that every single team in the Premier League gets a home fixture so that home fans can take advantage of this. And as you know, in a single game week, not every team has a home fixture. It's actually half the teams have a home fixture, half of them have an away fixture, and some teams can even have 2 or 3 away games on the trot. So this is called absolute carnage, because what's had to happen now is that almost 2 game weeks have to be combined. Fixtures have to be rearranged, postponed, so that every team in the Premier League gets at least 1 home game, I think in the last 2 game weeks or something like that. So there could be a double game week from game week 35 to 38, but that is unconfirmed news. And I mean, with the current situation that we're in, this news can change at the drop of a hat. I mean, if there's a spike suddenly, maybe they cancel this double game week or home game week for everyone in the Premier League kind of plan, and then it just goes back to normal game weeks. And that's kind of the dilemma that I've been in, because I'm reminding you guys of this double game week 38, 35 to 38, just say, because if you are using your wild card now, you won't have a wild card later on, and that's something that you got to consider. Because as I always say, you should target the double game week because it provides the best opportunity to boost your rank as high as possible. I mean, just think of those scores that we've had earlier in the season with these double game weeks. We've had 100-point club game weeks that have been absolutely sensational, and I mean, just think of those rank rises that you guys have had. But also, this is unconfirmed news, and that's the dilemma I'm currently in, is should I go for official fixture swings right now for teams like Arsenal, Liverpool that have great fixtures from now to the end of the season, or should I maybe hedge my bets and go for a double game week later in the season that hasn't been even confirmed yet? So that's kind of what I wanted to just mention to you guys. I don't want to give you guys a dilemma to focus on, but just something to take into consideration when you are planning your wild card from now to the end of the season. But now let's get on and see how the fixtures have changed. So with the new announcement of this double game week 32 for Spurs, we have had some fixture changes, and what you've seen here is that Spurs have risen to first in the Fantasy Football Hub fixture rating from an attacking point of view. So I went on to Fantasy Football Hub, I sorted from game week 30 to game week 38. From an attacking point of view, their ratings, you can always go for defensive ratings, but I always prefer the attacking ratings, and as you can see, Spurs number 1 with a 1.52. So you definitely should be focusing that Spurs lineup. What this also tells you is that you maybe should also focus getting a triple triple up on them and maybe going for someone like a Lloris or a Sanchez in that defense just to shore it up a bit. I think Son and Kane, perfectly fine combination there. If you want to go more differential, you can also go for someone like a Lucas Moura and Lamela, but I think Son and Kane are going to be your high-owned players that it might be a little bit risky not owning those players, especially with these good fixtures. The mainstay from the previous videos, if you haven't watched the best fixture video, go watch that. I'll put it in the link down in the description below. Also, if you watched my normal wildcard draft, the fixtures pretty much are the same there. We have Arsenal, Liverpool and Wolves. The only team that has dropped out of the top ratings is going to be Southampton. I mentioned that the implementation of that Spurs game for Southampton has really put a spanner in the works for their fixture game. They went from having some really great fixtures in the short term to having some pretty dreadful fixtures in the short term, so they've completely dropped out here and my focus has been shifted away from them, but we still have some focus on Arsenal, Liverpool and Wolves and also Chelsea. The rest of the teams here also filled in. The team that I also mentioned in the previous wildcard draft was Manchester United, because I actually didn't own Bruno Fernandes in that draft, which could be a little bit controversial, but if you look at their fixtures there, Brighton, Spurs, Burnley, Leeds and Liverpool, that Leeds game is probably the one that you want to target, but not the best fixtures in the world compared to the other sides, and that's why I've gone without Bruno Fernandes. If you think that he can still return in these games, which he probably will, as he's been one of the most consistent players in the game this FPL season, then you can go for him, but I'll show you which options I went for when we do cover that updated draft. The final quick talking point I want to go over is just to remind you guys about blank game week 33. It is a blank game week for Spurs, City, Fulham and Southampton. You guys can just simply pause the video right now and look at the fixture ratings. I'm not going to cover them too much because I've covered them in depth in the previous videos, but please don't forget about blank game week 33. Now this is the draft, the updated draft that I managed to come up with. First off, I've got 0.0 in the bank, so yes, spent every single penny on this draft. I'm pretty sure most of you guys should be able to afford this, as my team value this season hasn't been great. If you do have more money left over, probably the place that I would focus that cash is using it to upgrade the defense, because the defense is looking a little bit dodgy here. I'll mention it when I go over each of these players. So I'll be going through every position and kind of talking you through the changes that I have made from the previous draft. If you haven't watched the previous video, this will be completely new and you can just enjoy the draft for what it is. So first off in goal, we've got Forster and Mendy. I did make a change from Forster and Patricio to Mendy here, just because I would rather focus more on Cody, and also I wanted to spare some cash because, as you know, I had 0.0 in the bank. A popular combination I've seen over on Twitter is Martinez and Leno. Well, I think that combination is really good. Main reason being for that is that Martinez has a double game week coming up from now to the end of the season. We don't really know where it's going to be, but it definitely will happen. But Leno has great fixtures, and then his bad fixtures are kind of filled by Martinez's good fixtures, so that's something to just watch out for. But as I said, that's too expensive for me, so I've gone for Forster and Mendy. Yeah, Forster still has a chance of starting for Southampton. I think from now to the end of the season, it's going to be a rotation between him and McCarthy. I'm kind of hoping that he does start the good games for Southampton, as if he starts the bad ones, it's not going to lead to too many starts in my squad. Mendy, just a safe option here. I know Kepa is in the background, but I think with Chelsea wanting to solidify that top 4 spot for that Champions League next season, they're going to be starting their main keeper, and that's going to be Mendy, and at 5.2 I think he provides some good value. I've accompanied him with Rudiger, so I've gone kind of for the 2 cheaper Chelsea defenders here. I would really have loved an Azpilicueta, but I simply just didn't have the money, and with Rudiger I'm pretty sure he'll start about 80 to 90% of the Chelsea games. He will be rotated every once in a while, but I think at 4.7 provides massive value there, considering he wasn't starting at the start of the season. We then go with Aurier, and the reason I've gone for Aurier over someone like Sanchez here is I want to just give you guys some talking points on Aurier. So right now, every other fullback for Spurs, that includes Reguilon, Doherty, and then also Davies, currently has a knock. Now, while I think after this international break they'll come back from his injuries and they should be perfectly fine, if they are out for a prolonged amount of time, that almost secures Serge Aurier's position, and with that upcoming double, I think that he could be a good option. So that's Aurier. If there's other fullbacks out injured, go for him, but otherwise Sanchez is probably the centre back that you want to go for, because I think from a starting 11 position he's a bit more secure. I've also gone for Cody here at 4.8. Doesn't provide that much attacking threat, but he did score against City, and if you can score against City, you can score against practically anyone. So at 4.8 maybe you'll get the occasional goal, but I don't think you'll be getting too much. But at 4.8 you can't really complain about that. Then we go on to the 2 4.0 players, which are a little bit dodgy. First off, it's Leeds player Struik. Apologies if I am butchering that name. I've got a little bit of a habit of butchering some names, so I don't know if he's going to start for Leeds. I just think that he's been starting the last couple games because they have had some injuries in their defense, but if he does manage to start, that's great. At 4.0, not too much risks there, but you don't really want a player that's not going to be starting on your bench. I had that at the start of the season with Ferguson from Crystal Palace. The other player is going to be Phillips at that 4.0 spot from Liverpool. Now, right now, I think that Liverpool pairing at centre-back position is going to be Phillips and Kabak. I think that's kind of the first centre-back pairing that Liverpool have had that have been quite secure, and in those bigger games, I definitely think I'm going to prefer having a Fabinho in midfield instead of centre back. So Phillips could start here. I actually think that he's going to start for the short term, and I'm just hoping that from now to the end of the season he's going to be their main centre back alongside Kabak. At the midfield, nothing much has changed here. We have incorporated Heung-min Son though. I still have stuck with Salah and Jota. We mentioned Salah versus Bruno in the Game Week 30 preview yesterday. I just kind of prefer going for Salah, more of a differential threat alongside Jota and kind of doubling up instead of swinging the Liverpool attackers. I do think Jota is probably the one that you want to aim for. I know with Firmino back from his injury, he might not be starting every single game, but when he does start or when he does come off the bench, he definitely does return. And I mean 6.7, not a lot of risk there. I definitely would still go for Jota. De Bruyne is also one of those picks that I have gone for. I probably will go for De Bruyne to Fernandes in the upcoming game weeks, just because I think De Bruyne with that blank and with that Champions League focus might be rotated a little bit. Heung-min Son is pretty much essential if he is back from injury because of that upcoming double for Spurs, so I would still go with Son and Kane, and I think that's perfectly fine because you've seen with those fixtures, after that blank Game Week 33, the Spurs fixtures are simply outstanding, so you can just kind of bench these Spurs options in blank Game Week 33 and then just roll with them from Game Week 34 onwards. Neto's the last player in that midfield, and because of those Wolves lovely fixtures, I do favour him from an attacking point of view, and I think from a Wolves point of view, he is their main attacking threat, so I still am going for Neto here. Rafinha is also a good shout if you want to still go from him. His stats absolutely sensational. I'm just always a fixture type FPL manager, so Neto and Wolves have better fixtures than Leeds in my opinion. Then finally in that forward line, already spoken about Kane, so we're going to talk about our two budget strikers, starting off with Adams. Although Adams has bad fixtures with Southampton, I think when you look at the squad, you're going to have some rotation between a 3-4-3 or going for a 3-5-2, and that's why Adams and Neto can simply just rotate whenever one has a better fixture than the other, and I still think at that price point Adams provides some good value. And then finally Iheanacho. If you talk about value for money, Iheanacho's form right now is incredible, so I definitely would still go for Iheanacho. I mean, I couldn't afford Vardy, but why go for Vardy when you get Iheanacho at 5.7? Although he doesn't have pens, he's about half the price, and I think that he still should have a good end to the season. So this is the current squad. I've made some changes from the last draft, but now let's get on to the cons and the negatives I have. So the first con or negative I have is the Man City coverage here. We don't have a Man City defender, and with probably one of the best defenses in the Premier League at the moment, if not the best, I definitely do think that you should have some coverage, but I simply couldn't provide the money for it. I guess you could go for maybe someone like Stones instead of an Aurier, but I still want that to kind of Spurs triple up. So the Man City coverage is a little bit lackluster. We also don't have Gundogan in this draft, and I mean, he's provided some good value for money there. So the Man City coverage is a little bit lacking, but maybe it's kind of a risk that we do take and go for some more assured options than have to deal with Pep Roulette every single game week. Then in terms of blank Game Week 33, we do have 5 players, but from now till blank Game Week 33, you do have some free transfers that you can make so that you can get a full starting 11. I mean, after this game week or Game Week 31, you might take out De Bruyne and downgrade him and then upgrade another position, and what I would kind of recommend is keep 2 free transfers before blank Game Week 33 so that you can still have that Spurs double game week, but then maybe take out Aurier before that. And then the final negative about this draft is going to be the defense. I really am worried about this defense in terms of rotation. I mean, if Struijk or Phillips don't start, you're suddenly down to only 3 playing defenders, and I mean, one of those defenders is going to be Aurier, so that's why I maybe go for a Sanchez. But I think what I would do is I would maybe look at someone like a Tierney if you don't want to go for an Aurier, because Arsenal also have some good fixtures there, or you can simply just downgrade Aurier and maybe upgrade Struijk or Phillips to maybe a playing 4.4, 4.5 players. So the defense is definitely the weak point of this wildcard draft, but with defense, they're not always going to return the most points, so always focus on attackers. Hey, that's how FPL works. But no, please have a good defense when you look at your starting lineup, and have some bench options so that if a player does miss out in your starting lineup, you can simply just get a good defender off. So this is basically wrap the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. Don't worry, I still am going to be releasing the team selection tomorrow. I might release a little bit earlier on since the deadline is on Friday, and hopefully I see you guys for a deadline with Dayvy live stream before that Saturday afternoon deadline. I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.